who am I? That is what we ask ourselves in college and ultimately why we go to college. So we can figure out who we are, what we like, what we want to study, what field we want to be in. Unfortunately, for some, after finding out who they are, they cannot express it freely in the world or in their business. I'm talking about the LGBT community. Originally, I started looking at LGBT rights based on the Supreme Court case of Obergefell versus Hodges, otherwise known as the Love Wins case that made same sex marriage legal in all 50 states. But then I realized that there's a little more to it than I originally thought. LGBTQ people face formal discrimination in businesses, and formal discrimination, as defined by a Munoz and Thomas article, is discrimination where they won't hire people or they won't give them rights. And an example of a business that refused to give service to a LGBTQ couple is a cake shop. And they went in, they wanted their wedding cake, like any couple would ask. And the owner of the bake shop disagreed with them on religious morals. And there's, according to the article by Ekis in a blog post by ACLU, that case is going up to the Supreme Court and is going to be a precedent for like what's going on with that certain situation based a private business refusing on the grounds of religion. There's also informal discrimination, and this is when known as the practice of distancing, where people show less interest, or they don't share personal information, or they avoid interactions altogether, as stated in the Munoz and Thomas article. This is not just a physical phenomenon. As you can see, there's more of a psychological edge to it that just makes the person belonging to the LGBTQ community in the workplace feel just not included. There's also microaggressions. I've included a few. One that really stuck out to me was you don't act gay, as if all gay people act a certain way. Another thing mentioned is that in a podcast interview with Liz Bingham, it's the CIPD podcast, 6 out of 10 graduates have to go back into the closet to find a job. So they're openly gay or lesbian in college, and then in order just to find work to support themselves, and they have to immediately go back into the closet when they're looking for a job. And I just think that that's ridiculous. Now, why does all this matter? Like, what's the point? Well, job retention is pretty important for a business. When you hire someone, you want them to continue working for you. You want to invest in them and have them grow. Well, in an SHRN blog post by Alper Lerox, she stated that 3 out of 4 people will leave the company if they feel like their voices can't be heard. And LGBTQ often find that their voices can't be heard in the organization because people either don't want to talk about it or feel uncomfortable talking about it. Also, job satisfaction plays an important role in how well an employee does, as stated in an HR Focus magazine article. Employees who don't enjoy going to work aren't going to do well. It's kind of like the classes that are in your major that you super enjoy, you're going to perform very well in, but the classes that are core that you might not necessarily care about as much, you might not do as well in or put as much effort into. Also, businesses will lose money. A business that looks like this might find themselves in this situation. Given our current public shift in opinion about LGBTQ culture and the LGBTQ community itself not wanting to buy products from a company that doesn't support their community. And the law is another factor as to why businesses must be more inclusive with LGBTQ people. As stated in an Everly and Schwartz article, they found that as soon as the laws changed, more businesses changed their LGBTQ practices in a phenomenon known as coercive isomorphism. Basically, someone's forcing them to change, so they change. Ultimately, though, why should we do this? Freedom. We live in America. We don't want to be chained to anything. We want to be who we are. We want to be free. And we want to be able to live our lives to the best of our ability and everyone to have a fair shot. One quote that I have is, "The freedom to be yourself is a gift only you can give yourself, but once you do, no one can take it away." So, LGBTQ people in college, they've found themselves, they've given themselves to themselves, but unfortunately, in our current business culture, they can't be themselves. Someone else is taking that away. They don't have their freedom. Now, I know that this all sounds awful, so how can we change this? Well, there's a couple of things we can do. The first being workplace education. As stated in the HR Focus magazine article, having an education program within the workplace to educate people on LGBTQ culture is vital to make LGBTQ people feel included in the workplace and to also lessen the discrimination that they might face. They found that often people discriminate against the LGBTQ community because they haven't interacted with them before, or maybe they have but the person wasn't openly LGBTQ, so they don't know what to expect, and then they have to fall back on stereotypes that are portrayed by the media, and obviously that's not an accurate portrayal of what the LGBTQ community is. So it's really important to educate your workers on what the LGBTQ community is and what it stands for. Another thing to look at is domestic partner benefits. This could be the adoption policies that they have, or the compassionate leave. So compassionate leave typically is reserved for family members who have passed away and you have to attend their funeral, and it's kind of like, you didn't expect it. But it can also be extended to if two men adopt a child, neither one of them would legally have maternity leave, but they can have compassionate leave so that they can raise their child. In an interview with Scott Dujari on the CIPD podcast, he stated that when he's looking for a job, the first thing he does is check to see if they have domestic partner benefits, just so he knows the culture at the workplace and knows if that's a place that he wants to work at. Ultimately, though, leadership is what will make the drive to make the culture more inclusive in the business. My quote here states that management is doing things right, but leadership is doing the right things. In the article by Munoz and Thomas, they found that organizations where the leadership was involved in LGBTQ education and LGBTQ activism, they were super inclusive with LGBTQ people. It starts with the top and it works its way down. If you don't think that your boss is invested in it, then why should you be invested in it? One question that people would ask, what about you? How can I make the change? How can I as a student impact this when you just said it's about leadership? Well, leadership is not about titles, positions, or flowcharts. It's about one life influencing another. We are going to be the future of the workplace. We are going to be the future managers, the future CEOs, the future people who can make a direct impact on this. So if we don't educate ourselves on how to make the workplace more inclusive, then it never will be. We have to make it more inclusive and not wait on other people to do it for us.